The Dutch East India Company arrived at the Cape of Good Hope in 1652 to establish a refreshment station. Although the indigenous people resisted the Dutch, they were forced to barter and trade with the new colonists. Many indigenous people fell into slavery after being stripped of their land and grazing cattle. The Khoisan were subjected to slavery, despite the Dutch having strict orders not to enslave the indigenous people of the land. Slaves who were brought to the Cape from Indonesia and India were subjected to appalling conditions, chained together like animals, and sandwiched like sardines in the hulk of the old Dutch ships. Only the strong and fortunate survived. On arrival at the Cape, they would be auctioned off one by one, mothers separated from their children. Later, the slave lodge was built, and the slave tree became the center of the marketplace for the colonists. Often downplayed in history, this historical building was the hellhole under the shadows of the beautiful Table Mountain. Once auctioned and assigned to different job descriptions, slaves worked day and night, long hours under the Dutch master's whip, with very little to eat. The slaves were given 3 days leave per year by their Dutch masters, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of January. However, they were required to provide the entertainment for their oppressors during this time. It was only during these 3 days that the slaves could see and communicate with their loved ones. Songs were composed in Dutch and Malayu and encrypted messages exchanged. These songs often carried messages of a deep longing for one another. Families that once lived together in their own land in freedom and happiness. Such was the human spirit that overcame their struggle through time. Therefore, we are because of them.
Good day, my name is Lucy Campbell and I'd like to give you a personal tour of the Slave Lodge today. I think it's very important that we start with this column of memory, we call it, my favorite exhibition. Why is it so important for us to start off with these names? Because after all, who built this city? These people built this city. My ancestors built this city. And I, in actual fact, can tell you this right now because I found out. You know, if you don't know, you don't know, you'll never know. But if you know you don't know, you will find out. And that's why many of our old people have selective amnesia, because they don't want to speak about the history of slavery or the history of Cape Town. And as I said, Cape Town was built on the backs of our ancestors. And this column, we use this symbol as evolution because we are because of them. I discovered my mother's surname on these 6,000 names of slaves. And if you allowed me to point out to you that surname, I could show you. Cubido. Cubido van Malabar. And so when you open the phone book, when you open our phone book, you'll see hundreds and hundreds of names indicating their slave ancestry. September, January, November, Moses, Hercules, Solomon's, Yankees, Dietrichs, Fredericks, Adams, Abrahams. So it is a very, very important installation, this, so that we can remember and that we don't ever forget.
In the beginning, shall we say, for about 5,000 to 15,000 years before Jan van Riebeeck came to these shores, the people that were living here called themselves the Khoikhoi and the San. And they were the indigenous people, indigenous in the sense that they'd always lived here. They'd never lived anywhere else. So they were, in that sense,